So today, 3 types of functions we're going to talk about. So first off, with a function, we've talked about a few different topics. One is domain and range. Anybody remember what domain, the definition of domain is? Does it still work? It does. And or range. Anybody remember what those are? Shaking your head no, Taylor. Don't remember? Anybody? Avery?
I think I know ranges.
Yes.
The smallest number is subtracted by the biggest one.
Wrong type of range. That is a type of range, but that's more that range deals with statistics, a set of data, not functions. So that's range applied to a group of data. Yeah, and to put it simply, domain is input values, range is output values. So we usually associate these with variables. Same page, Saya. Input is which variable, output is which variable.
Input is X, output is Y.
Yeah, we usually think of X values being associated with domain and Y values associated with the range. So keep that in mind. We're going to look at domain and range today, but those are 2 important things. First, before we actually get to talking about domain and range, though, the 3 types of functions we're going to talk about today. Continuous, discontinuous, and discrete. So continuous and discontinuous are, I think, pretty obvious from the way they're named. If something is continuous, what does that mean? It goes on forever. It's uninterrupted, right? You can see from the 2 pictures here, there's no interruption in the left-hand case, the line, the right-hand case, the parabola. There's no interruption, right? The line, if you will, the graph is solid. As compared to one that is discontinuous. So in each of these cases, then on the case on the left, there's one break in the graph, right? It may be hard to see up on the overhead, but there's that dashed line indicating that at x equals, I think, 3 probably, it appears. At x equals 3, there's a break in the graph, right? The graph on the right, that's what's called the stair step function. So again, obviously not continuous. You can see the breaks from step to step to step, right? So that's discontinuous. The last is one that you may not, or you may be more familiar with too than discontinuous. A discrete function. So discrete functions are functions that are made up of just points. As you can see on the left, it's a random collection of points as opposed to the right where there's a pattern to them. But in all cases, it's just a point. And let's see. Now we'll get to that later. And some actual concrete examples. Yes, Si? On the discontinuous one, are you saying this function and that one, for instance? Okay. You can kind of see it in the graphs. There is some continuity to the stair step. So you can see the small, albeit small, but small lines here indicating range of values as opposed to the discrete function where it is just point after point after point. Does that make sense? I agree, it is hard to see a difference between those two with the examples they use, but there is a slight difference there in them. Okay, so what they're going to ask you to do today is they're going to, one of the things they'll do is give you a graph like this and ask you what type of graph it is. Hopefully this is going to be pretty easy. So, is it, or what type of function it is, I should say. Is it continuous, discontinuous, or discrete? Discrete. Pretty easy, right? In that case. Alright. The other thing they may ask you too is, they'll give you a function like this and ask you to give the domain and range. So, first question. Continuous, discontinuous, or discrete? Continuous, okay. What is the, I think the domain's actually a little easier here. What is the domain? In other words, what x values does the graph represent? Or maybe, I think a better question is what the domain, what x values aren't represented at all? No negative numbers, right? 0 and greater are all represented by that function, but nothing less than 0. So, for the domain, and it's as simple as writing thank you, Kay. X is greater than or equal to 0. What about the range? The range sometimes, in a case like this at least, is harder to understand. What y values are represented? Most people are going to say 3 to negative 3 because that's all they can see. What do we know about the arrows though? So, eventually if you go long enough, far enough to the right, it's going to keep going up forever, right? So when you think of it in those terms and understand what those arrows mean, eventually it's going to get up to infinity or down to negative. So really it's all y values, right? So the way we're going to represent the range in this case is all real numbers. Does that make sense to everybody? Whoa. So listing of domain and range hopefully is that easy for you in terms of writing. That make sense? Okay. Next example.
So
if it's it will. We'll go back. We've got one more example with that. Okay. Now it might be hard to see up there, but first, continuous, discontinuous, or discrete? I would say discontinuous. Next question, where is it discontinuous? 2 and 4 both, right? So make sure you understand that. You don't necessarily need to list that. May or may not ask for that. But last thing, what is the domain and what is the range? So what x values are represented? What y values are represented? It looks like x from 0 to, it'd be easy to say less than 2, but 2 is also represented, right? So I would say greater than or equal to 0 and less than 4. That makes sense to everybody? For the domain. Because we hit all x's on the graph equal to or greater than 0 and up to 4 but not including 4. What about the range? What y values? You said 0, 2, 2? I would say 0 and 2. Are there any other y's between 0 and 2 that just 0 and 2, right? So for the range, it's just going to be, maybe we should say this, y equals 0 and 2. Okay, too far in. So, x is greater than or equal to 0 and less than 4, and y is only 0 or 2. Alright, last one. I bet you can guess what this is going to be, Kate. Discrete is the one we haven't talked about, at least with domain range. So, obviously, a discrete function. How many points? I see 4. I agree with that. Okay. So, what's the domain? What's the range? What x values are represented by those 4 points? -2, 0, 1, and 6. I agree. What about the range? Which y values are represented? 0, 3, 5, 7. So, just going off those ordered pair, domain is -2, 0, 1, and 6. Range is 0, 3, 5, and 7. So essentially, it's just listing the x values for the range. The x values for the domain associated with those points, and the y values for those points as the range. Confusion. Hopefully a pretty easy topic. Hopefully. Any questions?